Okay, today's assignment is about wood frame construction. I will be holding a Zoom at your class time. So for this class, it says 9 a.m., but yours might be a little bit different. And again, every day during this time period, I have Zooms also available at 1:45 to 2:30 for people that need help on certain things. Again, the Zoom information is farther down in this Google Classroom assignment titled 1 for Wood Frame Construction Information. So today's lesson is you're going to basically take notes from the attached and put them on the attached Google Doc. So on your top right of your Google Doc for this assignment, you should have a document, and you click on that and you can see where you can type in answers or notes for each part. And you're going to get that information from the attached slideshow. So down at the bottom of this Google Doc, you're going to have the ability to view only, not edit, the Google slideshow called Wood Frame System. If you miss class, you have this video that you can watch, but you can also just look at the slideshow and get the information for your notes. The end result, the graded thing for 100 points is going to be the attached Google Doc. Should be at the top right of your assignments underneath of your work. If that's what you're going to do. All right, so let me get out of this and show you the slideshow. Okay, how do I get to it? I don't want to scroll down. Here it is. I'm going to present this so it's a little bit bigger for you. All right. So this is a Project Lead the Way lesson, but we don't need to use Project Lead the Way to do this lesson. We're going to do it all in Google Classroom today and on Google Docs. So here is floor joists. These are the boards that run underneath of the floor. They're going to support the floor and anybody that's standing on the floor. And we'll be talking about the subfloor later, which is this piece of wood right here. This is an oriented strand board. But you can see the floor joists are the long boards that run across underneath of the floor. And so you can see they run horizontally so people can stand on them, and they carry the floor, and they will carry everything above it as well. So they need to make sure that they're strong enough to carry, other walls and other things that might be above it. So that's floor joists. Subfloor, that's the boards that go on top of the floor joist. Anymore, we put OSB type boards with tongue and groove type construction like this, so that the boards can't warp or bend when somebody walks on them. They're locked in together as they go across, like this section right here. The board next to it, and the board. So right here, when somebody steps right here between the two joists, it's not going to bow because it's going to be supported by the board over here as well. And then later on, you might put carpet or you might put vinyl flooring or some type of other flooring on top of this. So this is called the subfloor. It's, again, usually 4x8 sheets of OSB, pretty thick OSB with tongue and groove construction. For your notes, you can put just this right here. All right, so then when we start building walls, we have the bottom board that goes across the bottom is called the sole plate. And so that's the one that's going to go right on top of the subfloor and going to be the bottom part of the wall. All right, then also in the walls, we have these vertical pieces, and they are called studs. So typically anymore, they use 2x6 construction for exterior walls and 2x4 boards. So this means 2 inches wide, or I guess this way in the short way, and 4 inches this way. And actually, this is it's weird that they give you those numbers just for those that's not experienced with this. The 2 actually is 1.5 when it's finished lumber, and the 4 inches is 3.5. So honestly, if you put a tape measure on these boards, they're going to measure 1.5 by 3.5, but everybody calls them 2x4s. And typically we do still space them on 16 inches on center. So from the center of this board to the center of this board, they try to do 16 inches. Now, sometimes depending on where a window is or where a wall, comes into it, there might be other supporting studs there as well, because it's not a continuous wall or something like that. Something's in the way. There's a window or a door or something. So it might not always be 16 inches on center, but that's generally the rule. 16 inches on center. Exterior walls are going to be 2x6s, or actually 1.5 by 5.5, and then interior walls will be 2x4s, which is actually 1.5 by 3.5 if you were to put a tape measure on them. So that's the studs. Okay, and then next we have the top plates, and typically there's 2 top plates, and they kind of crisscross at the corners. So you can see the top plate on the bottom here is going all the way to the exterior of this wall, and then the top plate here is going all the way to the exterior this way, so they kind of cross. That ties in the 2 walls and makes a nice strong structure at the corners. Again, this is a horizontal, just like the sole plate was horizontal and the studs were vertical. That's going to go across this top of the studs, support any next floor joist if it's a 2-story house, or it's going to support the rafters or the ceiling joists if it's a 1-story house. All right, so if there is a window, we have several different parts that we call inside the window. The one at the very top of the window is called the header. And this is the same above a door opening as well. You have the header board. And this is still going to help support the top plate to make sure that it's going to support whatever's above it, whether it's floor joist, ceiling joist, or rafters. Okay. And then we have the sill, which is at the bottom of the window. It's again a horizontal piece, just like the header was. The header is going to be turned sideways because it's going to have more strength that way. So it's going to be standing on edge, and you can see here there's probably 2 2x6s or 2x8s that are nailed together with maybe a little bit of OSB in the middle just to make it extra strong, with that oriented strand board in the middle, and get the thickness that we need to match the wall of the 2x4s here or 2x6s, depending on what you have. Down here, you're going to turn that board sideways, that sill, and it's not really supporting anything but the window, so it doesn't need to be turned on its side. And that's going to allow for better insulation underneath. All right, so let's keep moving on. So then we have these cripple studs. So the cripple stud is where the stud would have been if going all the way up if the window wasn't there, but because we had to cut them and to put the window in there, we call these crippled studs. So it's a short piece, still probably 16 on center, somewhere in there. If the window is a really large window, wide window, you might have a couple of these up here, trying to keep that pattern of 16 inches on center for the studs. All right, and then we have the trimmer. The trimmer is underneath of this board here, okay? So the trimmer is going to support the board up here that's also going to support the weight above it. So keep that in mind. This board here has to rest on a board. You can't just nail it into the side of a board. Nails are not going to be as strong as having a board underneath of it to support that weight, to transfer that weight down through to the floor, to the joist, to the foundation. You're going to want all that underneath. And so you can see we kind of have several boards. We have, and we'll get to those in a minute. So we have the trimmers underneath and above. Okay. And so this is kind of what it looks like. They're spaced out, so you can kind of see the different pieces. But this is kind of the anatomy of the window, and so, or of the wall actually, with a window in it. So at the top, you have, I guess, number one is the top plate. And then here you have studs, right? All the way up, all the way down, studs. Number 3 is your sole plate. Number 5 is your trimmer. Number 6 is, shoot, just gave me my memory right now. Number 7 is a cripple. Number 8 is also a crippled stud. So 7 and 8 crippled studs. 6 sill, sorry, there it goes. Sill plate. And then up here you have, this is not really how it would be. It would be turned on its side to give it a little bit more strength to support this, because otherwise the weight of the roof or joist or whatever is going to be here is going to push down on this cripple stud and bend this if this board is turned sideways, like this, laying flat instead of laying on its edge. So we need these to be a little bit thicker, and a better picture would have been nice, but this is what we got. So the 4, let's go back, it's escaping me. There it is, header. Easy, makes sense. Top of the window, top of the door is the header. That was escaping me, but it was. So that's the header. Okay, and I guess this is the window. Okay, let's see if they give us answers. Yep, top plate, stud, we got those right. Sole plate, we got that right. Header was one that was giving me a hard time. Trimmer, so number 5, the trimmer, we talked about that. Number 6, the sill, yep. Cripple stud, both 7 and 8, we believe, yep, sure enough. And 9 is a trimmer. So they're calling this another trimmer, just like this here. Don't really like that picture for that trimmer, but we'll look at some real pictures in the future, and we'll kind of see how this is done to make sure that everything is supported with something underneath of it. Anything that's going to have weight underneath of it needs to be supported all the way straight down, because cracks in the board or cuts in the board is going to provide a place for space, and it's not going to be as tight as it would be if it was a full board. And so things are going to move. All right, so now we're talking about insulation. So in between those studs, we're going to put insulation in here across the joist, and we can't see it here. These are ceiling joist here. This is actually trusses. The roof rafters and the ceiling joists are all hooked together and made into trusses. Okay. But in between those, all we're talking about today is the insulation, the pink stuff, insulation. So go ahead and write that down in your notes. Okay, and I'm going pretty quick, so because you can stop this video and you can pause it if you need more time to copy things down. Of course, you can always go to the slideshow and get the information from the slideshow as well. All right, sheathing. So sheathing is what we put on the outside. So it's placed over the exterior studs and serves as a base below the exterior finish material. So eventually we're going to put some type of weather protecting material, but this sheathing is going to provide strength and make sure that these boards don't go one way or the other. They're going to stay the same distance apart all the way up. And so this is going to help support and make the structure a lot more rigid by having the sheathing here and the sheathing here, and stronger. Vapor barrier. So after we put the sheathing, we want to protect it and the insulation inside from getting moisture inside. So especially around here where we have humid summers, we don't want that humid air getting into our insulation, because that can cause the insulation not to last as long and cause it to mold, depending on what type of insulation you have. And it can cause the insulation to just not be as efficient, start sagging and drooping. So mold's probably the biggest issue. So you want that vapor barrier there to keep any moisture in the air, humidity we call it, from getting into the building, but also into the insulation cavity. Okay. Siding. So this is our final exterior piece. So after we have the sheathing, then we have the vapor barrier, and then we have this reddish looking siding. And this can be several different things. It can be plywood, but typically it's some type of hardwood, something that can last a little bit better in the weather when painted. It can be plastic, it can be vinyl, stucco, brick, or stone, something that is pretty well weather resistant. So back in a long time ago, they used a lot of wood here, but they would have to paint it and continually paint it to provide that protection from the weather. Now we have a lot of plastics and vinyl, PVC type materials that can go on the outside to be weather resistant, although there's chemicals involved in that, and so it has its own problems in the process. So does paint when you paint wood. So nothing's really perfect. You just got to think of what's best for your place and your environment. All right, so roof trusses. So again, I was talking about these a few moments ago. The roof trusses are connected with these typically metal, can be wood, but typically metal anymore, pieces that kind of stick into both pieces of wood. So you've got a piece of wood going up this way, which is, maybe and then you got a wood going down here, and you can see all the triangles. It's going to make this truss really strong. Triangles are the strongest two-dimensional shape. So really, really, really strong, horizontally, or I'm sorry, vertically. Can't push this down because this can't move anywhere. This can't move anywhere because it's all attached and can't be spread out or slide in. So trusses, it's a whole bunch of members, they call boards members, joined to form a rigid framework, usually connected to form many triangles. Okay, so here's the roof truss system has a couple different parts. You have rafters at the top, roof rafters, and then you have ceiling joists. So just like you have floor joists we talked about earlier, you have ceiling joists as well at the top. So your ceiling is going to go on here. Maybe it's drywall, or maybe it's some type of PVC as well, vinyl siding. All right, and then on the top, we're going to talk a little bit more about what's going to go on top to protect our house from the weather. All right. So we have decking. It's a covering placed over rafters that serves as a base below the roofing material. So this is not going to be weather protected. Like it's getting that way. There are some boards out there that can serve as weather protection, but they are generally going to have something on top of it to be the first line of defense. So we'll talk about the second line of defense first, because we don't want water to get to this board. We're going to put several things on top of this board to make sure no water gets to it when it rains or snows or even ice forms. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is put some what we call roof felt or underlayment. I'm sorry, underlayment, and this could be called roof felt, and it's usually a black piece of paper that goes over top of it. Now they are making some boards now that the decking or already has this kind of built into it, but still a lot of people put this paper all the way across just as an extra layer to keep water coming out or getting into the building. All right, so then finally we put shingles. So the shingles go on top. I hope you guys don't see this. I'm going to get rid of my meeting controls because hopefully you guys see this. Shingles. So thin material laid in overlapping rows. So they overlap each other. So as water flows down, because of gravity pulling it down, when water hits up here, it's going to land on this shingle that's up here, and it's going to flow down to the next shingle, and then it's going to flow down to the next shingle and the next shingle, because they're all overlapping. And even if the wind is really blowing this way and trying to blow the water upward, if you have like a hurricane season or something, the overlapping, and there's a little bit of asphalt, kind of a glue going on underneath there, that should prevent the water from getting up too far so that it gets on this paper. If it does get on the underlayment, the underlayment will also allow that water to shed down the roof and not get to the decking or to the sheething, okay? The other thing that shingles do, because they overlap, the nails and the holes that overlap, the shingles that go on top of them, so you start at the bottom, you lay this, you nail underneath, then you lay on the next one so that it's underneath. So the nails are underneath the next layer, and then you nail up here so that when you lay this next layer down, it's protecting the nails and the holes that go through to this sheathing or this decking material here, this white one, okay? All right, so quiz time. Here we go. Let's try to do this. Number 1 is up here. So this I'm going to say, guesses. Yeah. Oops. Oops. Go back. Oops. It's not going to give us the answers this time. Ah, bummer. So this is actually on your document. So I guess that's what it's saying. You're going to go ahead and fill this out on your document, and you can go back to the slides in the slideshow and kind of look at this again, which is what I just showed you. You have access to this slideshow that I just showed you, and you can find out what number 1 is and type that in, number 2, number 3, number 4, and so on, all the way down to number 9. And then the last thing you're going to do on your page, on your document, is to talk about some of this extra stuff that goes in between the wood frame structure of the house to make it better heat insulated or cool insulation, depending on what season it is. Also to keep out any rain or moisture, you're going to have to label all these to kind of get knowledge of what these materials are, or what they're called anyway. All right. So go ahead and finish that document up. And that's it. Good luck. Turn it in when you're done in Google Classroom.